Hello, everybody. David Shuster here. Donald Trump, the world's greatest showman, has mounted his gilded soapbox again and declared himself Neptune of the Americas. Trump has decided the U.S. military and Pete Hegseth should continue attacking boats in international waters.
Let's get right to breaking news. The Secretary of War is announcing a new deadly strike on suspected drug traffickers in the Caribbean. Secretary Hegseth says the strike in international waters killed 6 narco-terrorists. That's the 10th known strike in the Trump administration's military campaign against the cartels, leaving a total of 43 people dead.
The latest strike came hours after Donald Trump claimed the alleged drug runners in wretched skiffs and fishing hooks 2,000 miles away from the U.S. coastline constitute a menace to the moral order of American towns and cities.
And Mr. President, if you are declaring war against these cartels and Congress is likely to approve of that process, why not just ask for a declaration of war?
Well, I don't think we're going to necessarily ask for a declaration of war. I think we're just going to kill people that are bringing drugs into our country. Okay? We're going to kill them. You know, they're going to be like dead. Okay?
The old Roman emperors, at least, had the decency to drape their wars of vanity in rhetoric about glory and empire. Trump gives us instead the idiom of knucklehead talk radio. They are going to be like dead. And so the Trump administration keeps playing whack-a-mole with the smugglers at sea, raining down missiles like divine thunderbolts on boats whose cargoes are unverified, whose crews are nameless, and whose destruction is conveniently unaccompanied by evidence or oversight. Democrats, and at least a few Republicans like Kentucky Senator Rand Paul, are calling it what it is: vulgar executive lawlessness.
You know, when you kill someone, you should know, if you're not at war, not in a declared war, you really need to know someone's name, at least. You have to accuse them of something. You have to present evidence. So all of these people have been blown up without us knowing their name, without any evidence of a crime. And for decades, if not centuries, when you stop people at sea in international waters or in your own waters, you announce that you're going to board the ship and you're looking for contraband, smuggling, or drugs. This happens every day off of Miami. But we know from Coast Guard statistics that about 25% of the time the Coast Guard boards a ship, there are no drugs. So if our policy now is to blow up every ship we suspect or accuse of drug running, that would be a bizarre world in which 25% of the people might be innocent.
But reality is a foreign concept to Donald Trump, and the Constitution, that once revered relic of Republican restraint, is now treated by Trump as soiled toilet paper to be thrown away. The War Powers Act, a suggestion. Congressional authorization, optional. Due process, a weakness. And so all that remains is the Trump spectacle, the glorious footage of American bombs and missiles striking a blur in the ocean.
The other thing about these speedboats is they're 2,000 miles away from us. If they have drugs, they're probably peddling drugs to one of the islands of Trinidad or Tobago off of Venezuela. The idea that they're coming here is like, it's a huge assumption, and really shouldn't you have to present some proof? It is the difference between war and peace. In war, though, you don't ask people's name. But if they want all-out war where we kill anybody and everybody that is in the country of Venezuela or coming out, that has to have a declaration of war. It's something that is not pretty, very expensive, and I'm not in favor of declaring war on Venezuela, but the Congress should vote. The president shouldn't do this by himself.
It would be comical if it weren't so grotesque. Trump's understanding of war, law, and morality is that of a child given a gun and told he's the sheriff. Yet in his own mind, Trump bestrides the world as a colossus, a savior of civilization, a scourge of the wicked, a warrior against boats. Never mind that these strikes violate international law, undermine diplomacy, and risk killing people who are guilty of nothing more than being in the wrong sea lane at the wrong time. For Donald Trump, consequences are abstractions, mere background noise in the opera of his self-adoration. Our nation's founders feared exactly this sort of demagogue, an authoritarian swollen with vanity, ignorant of restraint, and convinced that his whims are divine revelation. The founders, through the Constitution, built a system of checks and balances to guard against the power grab of such a figure. But then, the American people elected Trump twice, proving that history is not a tragedy, but a farce repeated on an endless loop.
Experts say most of the drug trade that's coming to the United States does not go through the Caribbean, that those trade routes are mostly headed toward Europe. It's the Pacific and it's Mexico where a lot of the drugs come in. And, you know, a lot of experts point out, too, that drugs mostly come in through legal borders, undetected.
And so here we are. The United States, the world's most powerful democracy, is firing missiles at phantom drug boats while President Trump preens. In turn, the MAGA crowd cheers, the Trump sycophants nod, and Republicans in Congress bow down and chant Trump's name as though the Don were Moses parting the Red Sea. But the sea does not part fools. It swallows them. And if our nation continues on this path, allowing Trump's sound and fury and vanity and vengeance, the United States will find itself not the master of the waves, but as a shipwreck, lost, sinking, and doomed. By the way, Republican House Speaker Mike Johnson nearly cried on live TV as CNBC anchors humiliated him for blocking the Epstein files vote.
That would be the vote that would allow the Epstein files to have to be released. And he said that's why you're not calling back Congress to swear her in.
Okay, this is so absurd, and I've answered it so many times, but I'll do it again.
Sorry.
Rep. Grijalva-elect is no. Thanks for asking it, Joe, because they keep using this as some sort of distraction. It's totally pointless. Okay.
Look how sad Johnson is. It was even more apparent when CNBC took Johnson's camera full screen.
Okay, Rep. Grijalva was elected after the House went out of session, so we are delighted to administer the oath to her as soon as we get back to regular session here, the legislative session. That's the whole point. By the way, I'm following the Pelosi precedent. She was Speaker here a long time. She did this many times. Julia Letlow, my friend from Louisiana, was elected in similar circumstances to replace her late husband who passed away from COVID. Nancy Pelosi took 25 days to administer the oath to her.
It doesn't have to be this way. This is a choice that's being made. And I think that is the issue here. And so this idea that it can't be done in some other way.
Johnson looks so sad. He's being humiliated and seems again to be on the verge of tears.
And I'd raise it because the other issue is, what would happen if you actually took those votes, and hard votes, and won those votes?
Check out that video at the link below. It generated a lot of comments on YouTube. One of the most popular is from Dominic, who wrote, "Wear him down. Ask him again and again to defend his words. He will crack one day soon." Indeed. I look forward to reading your comments about Republican Senator Rand Paul blasting Donald Trump's shoot first, talk to Congress later approach towards Venezuela. I'm David Shuster. Thanks for joining us.